Good morning, everyone. It's Way Money here, and welcome back to Hack My Laborer, the Starbase tutorial series where we learn about fun things that we can do with our ships by practicing on our free starter laborer module first. Today we're going to be adding some extra functionality to our mining lasers with some more YOLO and make our ship look a little fancier with the paint tool. Before we begin, don't forget to hit the like button if you're enjoying the series, and maybe subscribe if you don't want to miss the next episode. Catch me on Twitch if you want to hang out and watch me figure these things out live. Alright, for starters, let's spruce up our ship a little bit. You probably noticed that the laborer module uses two different colored plates. The exterior uses the default dark gray color that all plates start out when they're crafted, but you'll notice right away that the interior is a different shade when you try and use crafted plates inside your ship. And this is a pretty easy problem to solve with a few credits. The research for the paint gun and the different colored paints are buried on the bottom of the tool's research tree. Not a cheap research at all, so we're going to hit up the auction house. You should be able to find the paint tool for between 7,000 and 8,000 credits, and the paint canisters for around 500 to 1,000. Buy a paint tool, and then if you want to match the interior of your ship, you'll want to pick up a paint canister gray as well. Feel free to buy whatever other colors you might want to use to decorate your ship. If you click on any canister in the auction house, you can see a little preview of the color in the upper left of the item screen. Now you can equip the paint tool just like any other tool. The only difference is the paint tool doesn't automatically reload the paint canisters from your inventory, so you'll want to drag the canister into the paint tool's ammo slot. Let's head into our ship and patch up some of these dark gray plates we crafted to fill in some of these holes. Just point at any plate and left click to paint it. The paint tool will cover the entire plate, front and back. If you make a mistake or just want to revert something back to the default dark gray color, you can right click the plate with the paint tool to remove the color. Just for fun, I'll add a nice pink strip to the side of my ship. Add a little splash of color to your ship if you aren't happy with the grays. You can even craft yourself some smaller pieces and just bolt them down to the outer plates if you want to make a fun design or logo for your ship. Have fun making your ship the prettiest ship it can be. Alright, let's work on adding some extra functionality now to our mining lasers. We basically did one step beyond the bare minimum with our mining lasers last episode. Today we're going to start by refactoring that code a small amount just to clean it up and make it easier to work with. The first thing we'll add is a few local variables that'll store the angles we're using. This is usually a good idea for multi-line YOLO scripts because it keeps all the customizable values right up front and also saves you characters in future lines when you need to reference these values. First we'll have C, which is going to represent our centered angle. We'll set that to 5. Then we'll have U, which will represent the upper limit angle. That's going to be 10 here. And lastly, we'll have L, which represents our lower limit, set to 0. Next, instead of checking if the sweep button is on and going to line 2, we check if it's off and set the minor rotation to be centered and then go to line 1 again. The reason I decided to change this is we will always go to the next line if we reach the end of this one, so we just didn't need both go-to statements on this line. I think it makes this line look cleaner. We say, if the sweep button is off, center our mining laser and check again. So if the button is on, that gets ignored and we move on to line 2 anyways. I did something similar with line 2 as well. In the first version of this code, we use go to 3 and go to 4, but since line 3 is the next line, we don't really need to explicitly tell the code to go there. Instead, we check if the minor rotation is centered. If it is, we set it to the lower limit so the turntable starts rotating towards that value. Then we check if the minor rotation is set to the upper limit and go to line 4 if it is. Otherwise, we'll automatically go to the next line because we reached the end of this line. I hope this code is a little more readable for some of you who have mentioned having trouble understanding YOLO code. Let me know in the comments if you still have some trouble with what's going on here. Most of all, defining our variables at the beginning is generally a good practice over rewriting and hard coding the values into the code over and over again. Now we just need to change those values in one place if we ever want to modify those angles. I also think it's much easier to read if you can substitute center and upper limit or lower limit while reading through the code. But at the end of the day, this code should do the exact same thing as it did before. Now let's install a new YOLO chip that we can use for automatically adjusting the pitch up and down just like we sweep side to side. This code is pretty much a direct copy of our horizontal sweep code, but we changed the angles to -14 for center, -8 for upper limit, and -18 for lower limit. Then we check for a pitch button this time, and we change all the mine rot to mine pit and mine cur rot to mine cur pit. Everything else is identical, so it works exactly the same as a horizontal sweep code. We'll need to rename some things and install some new buttons for this to work. I think a cluster of smaller buttons will save us some space on the dashboard at the expense of labels, so craft yourself 4 simple button 12x12 and head up to our dashboard. We can remove our current sweep button and then just arrange the 4 simple buttons on the same plate and bolt them in. Rename one of your buttons button state field to sweep and then rename another one to pitch. You can also change the colors to anything between 0 and 3 if you want the buttons to be different colors. Now let's rename our turret fields. Use a universal tool and rename the turret pitch field of both of your turrets to mine pit. Also rename the turret current pitch to mine cur pit. We want the laser to scan pretty slow, so I set my target velocity value to 0.01. Feel free to tweak this value if you want to scan a little faster. Now if we push the pitch button we just installed, we should see the turrets move up and down. Press the sweep button and they'll also scan side to side. A large benefit of using multiple YOLO chips for these different mining laser modes is being able to mix and match which functions you want active at any time. Let's add one more really quick. Mining lasers are a power hog, and one common way to mitigate how draining they can be is to have the beam pulse on and off instead of going full blast forever. This gets you most of the performance for pretty much half of the power required. Install one more YOLO chip. This script is going to be pretty simple. On line 1, we check if the miner button is off. If it is, we set :miner on to 0 and then go back to the beginning to check again. If it's on, we set :miner on to 1, which should turn on our mining lasers. Then on the next line, we check if the mine pulse button is on. If it is, we set :miner on to 0, which will turn off the mining laser. Then we always go back to line 1. On line 1, we turn the miner back on, rinse and repeat. If the mine pulse button is off, line 2 will just go back to line 1, so the mining laser never turns off. Make sense? Head to the front of the ship and name one of those simple buttons we just installed Mine Pulse. Then go to the mining lasers and rename the miner field to miner on for both of the lasers. Now we should be able to test everything out. Turn on mine power so your generators charge up, and then power up your miner. Now just turn on any combination of the miner modes we just set up. Need a mining pulse, but you want to rotate the ship manually with a static beam? You can do that. Want to sweep side to side while also panning up and down? You can do that too. Want to add a pulse to that? Easy as a press of another button. I think there's one more quick tweak we can do to make our current setup a little better. We added the pulse mode in order to save a bit of power, but we're not actually doing that since our mine power button just sets the generator to 100% when it's on. Head over to your memory chip and use the universal tool on it. We want to name the next free field to be mine PWR, which is going to represent the amount of power we should use when mine power is active. Now we're going to need to write one more super small YOLO script. Free up space in your sockets by moving your sweep scripts to the racks up front and add a new YOLO chip. Here we check if the mine pulse button is on and set :mine PWR to 50 if it is, otherwise we set it to 100. This will save that value in our memory chip so we can access it from our generator controller script. Edit that script now and just replace the :gm equals 100 on the first line with :gm equals :mine PWR. If we go back up front now and turn on our mine pulse button while mine power is active, our generator should only heat up to 50%, which should be enough to sustain our miners on pulse mode. And there we go! I hope this was helpful. I'm making an effort to try and make the YOLO in these episodes a little easier to understand, so please do let me know how I'm doing in the comments. If you have any questions or suggestions, I read and respond to all your comments. If you haven't already, leave a like if you're enjoying the series and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I stream every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday on Twitch where I tinker and code and figure out how to do these tweaks. There's a link down below if you want to follow me there. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. But for now, please take it easy.